All right. Thank you all for sticking with us throughout the entire thing. Thank you to everyone that's on the live stream for continuing to listen in. Before we jump into our fireside, Nima, I don't know if you know this, but I was talking to some of the folks backstage, and they said that this is actually an EDM venue that we're in, and it turns out that one of the primary performers here is Diplo. So we're expecting you to be as good as Diplo.
He's one of the greatest, so I'll do my best.
Fair enough. All right. So I'm really lucky because today we have Nima, who leads Blend, founder and head of Blend, I think is the proper title. Before we jump in, though, Nima, do you want to just give us maybe 30 seconds on what Blend is and what Blend does?
Yeah, sure. We're a software platform that's used by 350 or so financial institutions across the country, and they use us and it's banks, credit unions, fintechs, and they use us to do things like originate a new mortgage loan or originate a new car loan or a personal loan. We do probably 1 in every 4 mortgage loans in the country, touches one of our customers. We do a huge number of personal loans on our platform. Those are probably our 2 biggest product lines. We do a ton of home equity loans, which we were just talking about backstage. And our hope is to take banking infrastructure, which is used by banks, fintechs, credit unions, et cetera, and turn it into a modern, digital-first, cloud-based software that, we've been at it for about 10 years and we're not even close, so we got a long way to go.
Well, I'd love to maybe go back to the beginning. Let's go back before Blend. I've heard that you like to play poker. I've heard that you were a professional poker player, perhaps like right out of Stanford or during Stanford. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, when I was a kid in my Stanford days, I was one thing that Stanford's really good at. Are you computer science in school?
No, I studied physics.
Oh yeah, he's not a real. Yeah, okay. But I was a computer science student, and I had benefited for years. I'd been coding since I was like 7 years old, and so when I got to Stanford, I was really ready for school. And actually, school I mostly went. I was trying to have fun there because I had not really had a lot of fun growing up. But one of the things I needed to do was I needed to get a job to pay for room and board. They actually cover all your financial aid needs if your parents make under a certain amount of money, which we qualified for, but they don't pay for your room and board. And so I was getting ready to go get this job at a local Starbucks where I had worked in high school as well. Not the same Starbucks, but back in Cincinnati where I grew up. And my dorm mate found out, and this is 2004 to put it into context, my dorm mate found out and said, Nima, don't do that. There's this new thing, online poker, that if you start to play online poker, you can pay the $3,000 a quarter room and board or whatever. I don't remember exactly what it was. If you just break even, you don't have to be good. You just have to break even. And so I'd never played poker before, but I got a free $25 in this poker site, and of course I lost it all within 24 hours. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go get this job, and then I'll shorten the story because I could talk the entire 40 minutes about this, but on that Friday, there was this free tournament for all the new players on the site, and I lucked my way into 3rd place, which was like a $700 prize. And again, as somebody who'd never played poker before, I lucked my way at thousands of people. I lucked my way into 3rd place, and that was $700, which covered the first month's room and board payments. And so I was like, that's a big deal. I need to make sure I protect this. And so I was like, I go to my friend, I'm like, what do you think I should do? He's like, read these books, go on this forum. It's called 2+2 Forums. I start studying poker, and the long story short is I ended up being really, really good at poker. I played professionally for 7 years after that. I was one of the top online was where all the big games were. I was one of the top online players in the world, played the highest stakes games, and ended up becoming a really good, fun 7 years for me during college.
And poker to mortgages.
And from poker to mortgages.
All right, so fast forward a little bit. You ended up at Palantir. And I think it was at Palantir that you kind of came up with the idea for what Blend ended up being. How did you land on that?
Well, I started at Palantir in 2008, which we had a financial services division at Palantir that was very small. It was a very small company at the time. And my clients, or our team's clients, were banks and lenders. And unfortunately, right then, the financial crisis hit. And some of the biggest banks who are our clients turned to us and said, we can't work with you on all this stuff that we were doing in our hedge fund and the trading world. We have to work with you on our mortgage book. Keep in mind, this is in the biggest crisis some of you probably weren't really in college or post-college at the time, but it was a really big crisis at the time, and people were losing their homes left and right. There was trillions of dollars lost. It was a really big deal. A lot of banks went up. Lehman Brothers went under. Citigroup stock went to like $1, now one of the biggest banks. And so they all got us focused on their mortgage books, and I quickly learned that entire $10 trillion industry was run on paper and run in filing cabinets and on mainframe computers. And for somebody who's a technologist, I looked at that and I said, I like the idea of the intersection of really big world problems and things that technology can solve. And that's the thing, those are the things that inspire me. And so I ended up, after 3 years of working on that with folks at Palantir, ended up leaving to start Blend with a few of my colleagues there in 2012. And it's actually almost exactly our 10-year anniversary today. So it's exciting.
That's amazing. Congrats on 10 years. Such a big impact. All right, so 2012, get the idea, you know that the banks need it, off to the races, overnight success, right?
Yeah, almost ran out of money a couple times. The hard thing about working with banks, and you guys work with a lot of banks, is they not only need a product and a solution that's better, but they don't want to be first movers, and they only want to go if there's a catalyst. And I remember 2012, 2013, 2014 were really, really tough years for us because they were going to have to be the first. The product was really good, but it was early and there were no proof points. They didn't want to be the first mover because if it didn't work out, they were going to get, the person who hired us was going to lose their job. And there was no catalyst. I remember these conversations where people would be like, why would somebody apply for a mortgage on their mobile phone? And I was like, it seems almost I had never even thought to ask that question because everyone's going to do everything on their mobile phone. Now, by the way, fast forward 10 years, half of the applications that come through our system or some crazy number, I don't know the exact number, come on mobile devices. And it's just obvious now, but back then there was no belief that was the future and there was no catalyst and they were making money hand over fist. So why would they do that?
Who was the first bank? How did you get the first one over the hump?
It was interesting. I think the first mover ended up being I was just on the phone with him on the way over here, actually, the CEO of this company. It's a mortgage company in Charlotte called Movement Mortgage. And really awesome company, really great culture, a mission-driven company. And the founder CEO was super bought into the idea of building a modern way to do mortgages. And we were just aligned on vision. There was nothing else. Our product barely worked. It was 2014. Nothing worked. And he was just like, hey, I believe where you're going. And by the way, still 10 years later, they're one of our biggest customers. They've grown a bunch since then. But it was just sheer grit. There was nothing else to lean on at the time. And I actually don't think we got a lot of traction going after the catalysts and you just brought this up in the pregame show backstage, there was this catalyst in 2015 at the Super Bowl where Rocket Mortgage launched their brand and they launched this concept of push button, get mortgage. And then all the banks who had called me for years and said nobody's going to do their mortgage on a mobile phone, it had been like keeping me at arm's length and saying, yeah, we'll work with you eventually, started calling me and saying, oh, actually, no, we changed our mind. This is a big deal. We need to work with you. And I would say that catalyst really set us over the top in terms of getting some transformation.
I remember actually watching that commercial, and I was like, I think that'll be big. I think that's going to go somewhere.
And it got a bunch of backlash because regulators looked at that and said, oh, we're going to bring back the crisis from 2008 where people are going to get mortgages that are unqualified. But it turns out that with services like Plaid, where you can verify bank data, and with services like Plaid, where you can verify, this is going to be a Plaid advertisement for a second.
That's perfect.
You can verify income, you can verify employment. I heard you guys can verify identity now, as of recently.
You can.
You can verify everything, so why would you make them do more work than they need to? If they can do all that work in the push of a button, it's more secure, it's more trusted, it's a better experience, it's lower cost for the banks. That's the promise of technology. And so the advent of this fintech revolution driving more access to data and the cloud being more compute coming to the consumer's fingertips in their pocket, those things coming together meant that it was possible. But at the time, again, it was very controversial because we had just come out of a big crisis where people had gotten bad mortgages, and that was not what we were talking about. And so it's a pivotal moment for the industry.
We got to update the commercials. Push Plaid button, get mortgage.
Yeah, right.
That's what comes next. All right. Let's see. So you've expanded your product set beyond mortgage now. Tell us about that path. Like, how did you go from just the mortgage product to the many things you do now?
Well, I mentioned that I was on the call with this bank or this lender CEO, and we're still on a very close. But he came to my wedding as a side note, and we're good friends. But I think it starts with you start by being very close with your customers. I got some early advice from another founder of a vertical software company, this guy named Peter Gassner, who runs Viva still. Viva is like a big pharma CRM company, and he's like, Nima, the most important thing is customer success. If your customers love you, they'll renew, they'll help you, give you advice, they'll do more with you over time, and eventually those will lead to lifelong relationships for your company. And that sort of it seems obvious when I say that out loud, but as a founder and a product-driven and engineering-driven founder, first and foremost, like I always put an overweight on the product, which I should, right? And I'm sure you do too, and I'm sure many of you are technically savvy folks yourself, and you do the same thing, but it's the marriage of the product and the customer that yields the great results. And so I stayed so close to our customers, and our customers naturally guided us to the next thing, which the first product we did was mortgage. And then the next product we did was one where our customers who had mortgage divisions said, hey, actually, sometimes people come to us for a mortgage and they actually want capital to like renovate their home or whatever, and a cash out refinance might make sense, but a home equity line of credit might make sense too, where if they don't know how much they're gonna spend and when they're gonna spend it. And so can't we just use this? We didn't want to verify the same information, the assets, the income, the identity, the fraud. Can't we just use the same system to verify all this stuff for the home equity loan or line? And obviously the answer was yes, even though it wasn't true yet. But it was like we figured it out. And so, but it started with being really close to our customers and them guiding us. And that's been the same. Now we have probably 10 product lines ranging from mortgage, home equity. Like I mentioned, we do a ton of personal loans. But even on mortgage, we have a ton of products built on top of mortgage to help our customers. Like if you want to close a mortgage over a video call now, you can with our platform. And that kind of thing, which consumers want that. During COVID, that became really important to our customers. And so building those add-ons was all natural. There was nothing forced. And it always starts with something that creates value for customers, creates value for consumers, and those highest value things were the things that we would prioritize on our roadmap and ultimately led to us having multiple product lines that are all growing pretty fast.
How did you make the decisions to do each one of those? Like it's always this, like the customer always wants the next thing. We always want to serve the customer's next need. But you have limited resources. Like how was that just a series of kind of like sequential decisions, or was it some master plan you had maybe early on?
First I think of it in a 2x2 matrix of like at the top right of the matrix is the high value things that are incredibly high need by customers. And the way those things manifest in that 2x2 matrix is like you always want to do those things, and the question is when. And I think everything else in that 2x2 is just not worth doing. If it's low value and your customers really want it, probably just work with somebody else who can do it. If it's high value but your customers don't want it, it's not the right time. There's no catalyst or whatever. If it's low value and your customers don't want it, then obviously it's self-explanatory. But those things in the top right, you really do want to do. Like we really want to do. And the thing that would ultimately, going back to this thing that I said, where it's a combination of a great product and how it comes together at a customer, is we'd figure out the ones that they had. Unfortunately, in enterprise sales, which you guys do a lot of too, you can't control exactly when customers move. Even if they're excited about something, having them actually have a project ready to go do something right now is critically important. And so we would kind of not do anything until we had a customer who was ready to commit to it, or at least one, but usually multiple customers who are ready to commit to it and get started on the work right away with us. And that was really important. Like right now, home equity, I'll give you a very timely example. Right now, home equity is really important. Home equity lending is really, really important to the market because consumers have built up $4.4 trillion in value in their homes beyond the mortgages that are outstanding. 4.4 trillion, and the economy is getting bad, inflation's high, there's a need for people to have access to capital to send their kids to college or open a small business or renovate their home or whatever it may be, or just pay off their bills. Home equity makes a lot of sense for that, but the process for getting a home equity line of credit or a loan is extremely paper-based and very manual. And we had a bunch of customers come to us recently and say, let's go do that. And then we sprint at it. And then we sprint at it really fast, and it's exciting because we have customers who are bought in. It's not just a high-value thing that we know they want. It's also something they're ready to do right now. And so, yeah, that's an example of one. But it's not easy. It's an art. A lot of those decisions are made by me still. When things are like really tough decisions, and I'm sure it's painful for a lot of people at Blend, but we have limited resources, and we got to make good decisions about this stuff.
Those are the hardest decisions that we all face. All right, you also, kind of talking about product expansion, you bought an insurance company. Insurance, and I think a lot of processing and so on and so forth. What got you to that decision? Like, it seems like a natural step, perhaps on the roadmap of what customers are asking. Was it the same process as your kind of product decisions too?
Similar. I mean, I would say we actually own 2 insurance agencies is what we own. We own one around homeowners insurance, which is property and casualty, and one around title insurance, which title insurance ensures that the property that you buy actually belongs to the person who you're buying it from, which sounds obvious, but it's sort of complicated. And the way I think about this is similar to that 2x2 matrix, is in some cases where we want to create value for the consumer and for our customers, it's possible to do so through partnership, and especially in the high value areas. But where it's not possible, there weren't really any, at the time when we decided to make these decisions, there wasn't like a modern homeowners insurance product where we could embed it in the mortgage flow, or it's time to get your homeowners insurance because you need it for a mortgage, and we can just show you a marketplace of home insurance carriers, providers like Progressive and State Farm and these things. You couldn't do that digitally. And so one of the things that we truly believe at Blend, and just writing up our principles document last night and revamping it last night so it's fresh in my mind, is we're willing to solve the whole problem when we need to. And not just the parts that are software. I mean, we're not afraid of getting into businesses that aren't pure software. Just because we're a software business, we have to be willing to solve the whole problem. Because at the end of the day, the customer, the end consumer, has a goal, and it has nothing to do with whether or not we care it's a software business or not. It's like they want to solve the problem of getting into their home as low cost and least friction as possible, and that's a really hard problem to solve. And so we're willing to solve the whole problem. Those were 2 examples of areas where we felt like we had to solve the whole problem.
You know what's wild is that every single question I've asked you about your company, your answer is basically customer centricity, like do what the customers need. I think that's really cool. I think that's a truly amazing way to build a company. I think we can all learn a lot from that. So it's really neat to hear. All right, shifting gears just a little bit. Started out selling to big mortgage lenders and the banks. Those are long enterprise sales cycles. I mean, both companies have done quite a lot of that. And then you started doing a lot more with fintechs more recently. Like, how do you think about balancing those 2 constituencies? Do you really lean into one versus the other, or do you have to do both at the same time?
They are different for sure. I mean, you deal with a lot more fintechs than I do, so I'd ask you how it is to work with fintechs. But the fintechs are much more technically advanced and much more self-serve in some ways, where they want to own the experience, they want to own the process of changing the product or configuring the product and all that stuff. A lot of the banks and lenders, they want to get there where they're eventually to that point, but with working with them, it's more around helping them navigate their internal process to get something built and rolled out so that it can be delivered to their customers. And so you have no idea how often at a bank, this happened to me. I was in New York yesterday with one of our big customers, and the CEO of their consumer lending division was like, "Can you just help us move faster?" It's like internally, he's dealing with all this stuff. He's like, "Can you help us understand where we're slowing ourselves down so that we can move faster? Because we need to move faster in all these areas." And he's like, "Write me an email on the 2 or 3 things you want us to do." And this guy runs a huge organization.
This is just move faster in general.
Like he knows that there's things that are getting in their way internally that are slowing them down, but they don't know how to operate in the same way a fintech does. Now, on the flip side, one of the problems with fintechs are amazing customers of ours, and we love working with them. One of the downsides is, while they can move fast and they have a lot of promise, they don't have a ton of distribution yet in most cases. Around lending, there's not like a huge fintech. There's maybe 1 or 2 huge mortgage lenders that are not traditional mortgage companies, and all the rest is done by the big banks and the big lenders. Or same with home equity. Home equity is almost exclusively done by banks because of the structure of the product. Personal loans, maybe done by 1 or 2 fintechs, but even some of the biggest personal lenders in the country, you've probably never heard of them. Like, you've probably never heard of One Main Financial, but it's
they're a customer.
They're a customer of yours. Amazing. So you have heard of them, and they're one that I think is, they're kind of behind the scenes, and they're probably more old school, but they want to be more modern and move faster. And I met with their CEO recently, and he wants to move faster. And so, anyways, it's just a little different working with fintechs versus traditional companies, but we treasure both of them as customers.
That's awesome. All right, we've covered a lot of the past, we've covered a lot of the current state. What about the future? What are you most excited for that you all are focused on over the next, call it 12, 18, 24 months?
Well, some non-technical stuff. I mentioned home equity is really important to our customers and to consumers, and we're going to be the best. We already have a huge home equity lending base, like 70 plus customers use us for home equity lending. But caveat this with all the legal disclaimers because we're a public company now. But we're going to be the best way you can get a home equity loan, hands down. Like it's going to be instant. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to be able to push a button, have all that stuff verified in real time, and get you an answer on how much equity you can get out in your home really quickly. And so, very excited about that. I spend a lot of time on product stuff still, in addition to spending a lot of time with our customers. On the technical side, and this is actually powering that home equity product, this is something I'm very excited about. One thing I'm very excited about is we've kind of been replatforming under the hood, where the industry is changing so fast, and we found that we couldn't keep up with the changes that were necessary for the industry changes that were happening, because there's so many things. It's so complex to do a mortgage. It's so complex to do a home equity line or loan. So we decided a couple years ago to replatform and create it so that whether it's our team or a bank or lender, or especially a fintech who wants to have more control, the idea that we take all these components that we just talked about, the different verification things you have to do, different steps in the process, the closing, make all those components available as part of our broader platform, but in a way that's truly drag and drop configurable. So when we want to design a new product from scratch, it'll take us days instead of months, or even longer, quarters to code it out. Or if a customer wants to build, we have a customer who just rolled out on this platform with this credit card for renters. And if you're a renter and you're paying rent, you're probably paying that with a check and you're earning nothing on it. You're not growing your credit score. And this credit card called Built, it's an awesome credit card. They're doing it in partnership with Wells Fargo. It's a completely bespoke product that they built from scratch on this platform, with our help. And the idea is that renters can now earn points and earn credit history so that they can eventually become homeowners. And things like those, innovations like that, we want to have our platform be able to support those things. And it can't happen if we're the ones who have to dream up every product that's created. And so from a technical perspective, I'm really excited about that platform. I think it's going to allow us to move faster and allow our customers to move faster. And hopefully that means the whole industry moves faster.
I agree. It's been so cool to see what businesses like yours have enabled businesses like your customers to do to consumers. It's just you're distributing loans to people that otherwise don't have access. You're helping people with credit so much more. And it's just been amazing. We've watched over the past many years as the kind of unbanked and underbanked rates have gone down so much. And
have they gone down a lot?
They have, and they're continuing to. Actually, 2020 was like a banner year, except the statistics are really hard to get because everyone stopped doing their in-person surveys during 2020. But the data that we have shows that like kind of continued reduction in unbanked and underbanked, which is great. Okay, I'm not sure I have a ton more. I think this was more fun than Diplo, but I'm a fintech nerd. Nima, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for wearing the company colors today. I'm glad you really dressed up.
Your company colors are black and white?
No, it's plaid.
Oh. I see.
All right. This is amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for being here in person. Thank you for being here online. This was a super fun event. For those of you that have questions about the products that we launched today, please ping whoever you want to at Plaid. Find us on our website or ping your account representatives or whoever. If you don't know who to ping, just ping me and I will put you in touch with the right person. And otherwise, we continue to be so excited by what Blend is building.
And we're a very happy customer of Plaid's, by the way. Shout out.
Well, we appreciate that. So excited for what you're all building. We're excited for the next, as I said, next 7 years of digital finance and the 7 years beyond that and the 7 years after that too. But thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.